Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a 5-game Major League Baseball slate that starts at 7 p.m. Eastern for the main slate. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? We don't have any weather issues on this particular slate, so that's nice for a change. With that said, let's get into this one. We do have a Strider slate here, so Strider is the most expensive pitcher by quite a bit. He's had 6 straight games with 9 strikeouts or more. He's only been under 27 fantasy points in one of those games. And the matchup, though, isn't super ideal. He has a high floor with a good K rate, so that gives him a lot of utility, but he is super expensive today at $12,700. Valdez for the Houston Astros is in play today. His floor is near single digits today, but he had some upside, and he had a good 20 fantasy point game earlier this season versus Texas. That said, I do like some Texas bats, so it's a little bit risky, but he has been giving up more earned runs lately than I like, but he has some good upside here. His last few games have been a little bit wonky though, so do keep that in mind. But he is a good play on the slate, as it's a pretty rough slate from pitching. Then we'll look at Marcus Stroman for the Chicago Cubs. He's been in a funk in the past 5 games. He's only had 1 game over 12 fantasy points in those 5. Which is a little bit of a cause for concern. But he's been pretty solid for most of the season, and this is one of the easiest matchups he's had in a while. So he's got 20 fantasy point upside here, though it does feel somewhat risky, and his strikeout rate can be kind of all over the place. So he is in play here, but he's high risk, high reward. Then we'll look at Bello for Boston. Now, you might be wondering why I'm considering a pitcher against Atlanta. Obviously, Atlanta is one of the best offenses in baseball, and Bello has been inconsistent throughout the season. He's averaging 15 fantasy points a game. However, he's only had 1 really bad game since the first 2 games of the season, and so he has some upside because he has been limiting some earned runs most of the season. He's only had 1 game since the game 1 that he actually gave up more than 3 earned runs in a game, and he does tend to get at least 5 strikeouts most games, which gives him a little bit of a cushion. I don't necessarily expect a 20 fantasy point game here, though he did manage a 19 fantasy point game against Atlanta earlier this year, so he does have some utility, and he's nice. He's a little pricey today as his price has popped up some. But he is in play, though. He is just super high risk, super high reward. He is squarely a GPP play on this particular slate. Then we'll look at Carlos Rodon. Now, Rodon has had a really rough start to the season. As you can see, he's started 3 games since coming back from injury. All 3 are losses. And he's only and he's giving up an average of 4 earned runs per game in those games. He's also given up 4 home runs in those games, and it doesn't get any easier here today against the Mets. However, he is going to break out at some point, and so from a GPP perspective, he should be in play today as he has the stuff to be good. He's just had some really rough starts since being back for a while. However, he does draw a tough matchup, so he is super high risk, super high reward, but he is squarely a GPP play and very contrarian today. Then we'll look at Andrew Heaney for Texas. Now, his earned run average has been really bad, which is one of the problems with him, though he's been boom or bust. So, like, he'll either get 0 earned runs or he'll get, 7 earned runs. So, he had 2 games against Houston this season where he scored 24 and 16 fantasy points, and he gave no earned runs up in either of those games. I find it a little bit hard-pressed to believe that he's going to do that again, but he's had 4 single-digit fantasy point games in the last 9, and one of his 3 19-plus fantasy point games was versus Houston in that stretch. So he does have some potential, but he's high risk, high reward, like most pitchers on this particular slate. Then we'll look at Alex Wood for San Francisco. He's considerable here simply because he's facing Oakland. He's not pitched more than 5 innings in any game, but if he can shut them down for those 5 innings, a 19 to 20 fantasy point game is his upside. I could see more likely like a 15 to 16 fantasy point game, but he's managed to score some decent games despite the limited innings throughout the season, and occasionally he's even managed to get a win. So, high risk, high reward again, though he's had some really solid games recently. When he's been able to get the shutouts. So let's go ahead and get into our catchers here. We're start with Sean Murphy. If he draws a start today, he hasn't hit the ball all that well recently, but he is kind of due for a home run, and he has good metrics for this game. His price is definitely high. I kind of actually hope that d'Arnaud starts today, as he'll be a better option and a little bit cheaper, and he's hit the ball very well in the 10 games recently that he's played. He doesn't play every game, though, as you can see his dates here, but when he does play, he does draw some good upside. Then we'll look at Diaz for Houston. Now, he has been a boomer bust play for most of the season. He's not hitting the ball all that well, and that really hurts him in the fantasy point perspective. But he does have home run metrics here, and that's why he draws some utility here. Then we'll look at Mitch Garver here for Texas. Now, his home run metrics for this game are off the charts. That's why I'm including him here. He's been somewhat inconsistent, but he is hitting home runs occasionally, and when he does that, he draws some good utility. He's also just dirt cheap, so he helps you pay up at other positions. Jonah Heim is also somewhat in play, though again very high risk here, as he does face a tough matchup here against Valdez, but he is in play as he has hit the ball decently well recently and scoring a decent amount of fantasy points. Maybe in the first base, we're going to look at Matt Olson here for Atlanta. Now, he draws, really good potential for a home run. He hasn't hit the ball well the last few games, but I do think he is due for a home run, as he has that kind of upside. He batting average wise has kind of been a little bit shaky lately, but I do think he's got some good potential in this matchup. Then we'll look at Bellinger for the Cubs. Now, he has been absolutely monster in the ball recently with a 385 average over the last 10 games. He also has some home run upside. Though he's been inconsistent throughout the season, he draws some good metrics for this game, and the way he's hitting the ball right now, he's definitely worth a look. Then we'll look at Pete Alonso. Now, he feels pretty high risk, high reward today, as he has not hit the ball very well recently, though he did finally get out of his slump yesterday, getting some big home runs, so I do like his potential here, and it's just a matter of time before he gets going again, as he has hit the ball pretty good recently, though, as a 286 average, which is far better than what he's been most of the season, but he's been somewhat inconsistent throughout the year. Jose Abreu is also in play here for Houston. Now, he's nice and cheap today, and he draws somewhat of a home run or bust game option here. I do like Houston as a stackable team, and they've got a couple guys that are actually reasonably priced, so that helps you pay up for other options. But he does feel a little bit risky just because he hasn't had a lot of big games, but he does have the potential, and even if he only scores 10 fantasy points, then he can pay off for you. And then Wilmer Flores for San Francisco. He has absolutely just crushed the ball lately with a 380 average over the last 10 games he's played. Though he doesn't play every game, so do keep that in mind. But if he does draw the start today, he is somebody to consider, as he's hitting the ball really well, and he's been hitting some home runs as well. Ozzy Albies at second base is my top option at second. He has been in a bit of a funk, but he did manage a home run 2 games ago, and this matchup really gives him a lot of upside. He is managing to get on base and score some fantasy points most games, but he's just not hitting the ball quite as well as he has most of the season at this moment. So, obviously, he has some utility here as a home run potential guy on this particular slate, but he does feel high risk as his price is pretty expensive. Gleyber Torres is also in play for the Yankees. Now, he's hit the ball very well recently with almost a 370 batting average over the last 10. And as you can see, he's been getting hits in just about every single game. In fact, the last game he didn't get a hit was on the 5th of this month against Baltimore. He's just hitting the ball really well, getting hits every single game. I really like his upside, though he's a little bit risky with his price, but he is definitely viable on the slate. Then Mauricio Dubon for Houston is in play. Now, there's a potential for Altuve to come back today, so we'll have to wait and see if he draws the start. But he does have some decent metrics for this game, despite the fact that he hasn't hit the ball very well as of late. If Altuve does come back, which it looks like he may be activated today, but we'll have to wait and see for certain. If he does come back, he will definitely be somebody that would be interesting on this particular slate. Moving into third base, we'll look at Austin Riley for Atlanta. Now, he draws some good metrics here. He's hitting the ball very well with 6 home runs in the last 10 games. The last 2 games, he didn't really do anything, but he did get a hit yesterday. But this matchup is really good, and I really do like Atlanta, though it's just going to be hard to roster an Atlanta stack today. Then we'll look at Rafael Devers, who is facing Strider, so that is somewhat risky. However, he is hitting the ball extremely well over the last 10 games with 4 home runs. He always has home run potential, but now that he's hitting the ball a lot better, in fact, he's had, I think, 6 multi-hit games in the last 10 games, so he has a really good upside, though he is in a high-risk situation versus Strider. And then we'll look at Bregman for Houston, who, again, I do like Heaney a little bit, but I think Houston batters are just hitting the ball really well lately. And Bregman is actually pretty fairly priced for his potential here, as he's had 4 home runs in the last 10 games, and he's hitting the ball very well. And even without home runs, he's managed to score fantasy points in different ways. So I do like his upside in this particular matchup. Moving to shortstop, we'll look at Pena for Houston, who I do think is a core play today, as even though he hasn't hit the ball very well recently, he has good metrics for this game, and his home run potential here is really good. Though he has been inconsistent throughout the season, I really do like his upside today, and he just kind of drew me in today with his metrics. Then we'll look at Volpe for the Yankees. Sorry for butchering your name. He has been inconsistent, but this particular position is really kind of crappy today. And he does draw some good potential here, as he's got some upside, though he hasn't really done a ton lately. He's had a few games in double-digit fantasy points, and that's really what we need from him today. Shortstop is very kind of today. So moving into the outfielders, we'll start with Acuna, who has been good all season long. He has stolen base potential, home run potential, just good hitting potential in general, as he's got a 328 average on the season. He is hitting 300 over the last 10 games as well, and he's had 3 straight double digits fantasy point games. Then we'll look at Kyle Tucker for Houston. He has absolutely just monstered the ball lately with a 421 batting average over the last 10 games, including 5 home runs. He is hitting the ball very well, and he's managed to score fantasy points in every different direction, every different way, whether he's getting home runs or not. He's managed to score a lot, so I like his upside here. He was very close to being a core play along with Acuna. Michael Harris is also in play for Atlanta. Now, he has hit the ball very well recently, as his batting average is rising quickly. He's getting the bat on the ball. He's not hitting home runs, but he does have the home run metrics today, and he does have stolen base potential as well. Stanton for the Yankees also in play today, as he is a boom or bust play, though. He is home run or bust. He typically doesn't do too much fantasy-wise if he doesn't hit home run, but he does have a decent price, and he's capable of doing that today. I already talked to you about Cody Bellinger, who is in play in the outfield as well. Ian Happ is actually in play today. He has been somewhat inconsistent this season, and he really hasn't hit the home runs like we would hope. But he does draw good metrics today, and he's starting to hit the ball pretty well recently as well. So I do like his potential here. I was really thinking about making him a core play as well, as he draws great metrics here, and he's nice and cheap. Chase McCormick is also in play for Houston. He's also hitting the ball extremely well lately with a 412 batting average. He draws great metrics for this game, and I like his potential, especially if he can pull a home run. Then we'll look at Jarren Duran for Boston. He does face a tough matchup here against Strider. Obviously, it's going to be tough to get a home run here, but he does draw some potential in this game as a hitter, and he's hitting the ball decently well lately. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and have a nice day, guys.